So, Andrew Tate was arrested today or yesterday, depending on what time zone you're in, on the suspicion of human trafficking charges. For anyone who knows me, I'm not one to get into drama. I'm not one to get into conspiracies. I'm not one to give political opinions or try to tell people what to think. And this video isn't about any of that. I'm not here to defend Andrew Tate. I'm not here to scorn him, right? I'm not here to lay down a conspiracy. I'm also not here to talk about a lack of conspiracy. I'm here to talk about critical thinking and what you can actually learn from this recent event. And if you learn to look at it in this way, you can really improve your critical thinking abilities, become more rational, more reasonable as a human. There's people that hate Andrew Tate, there's people that love Andrew Tate, there's both extremes of the coin. I am in neither camp of those situations, right? There are things that Andrew Tate says that I strongly disagree with. There are things that Andrew Tate says that I strongly agree with, right? But for some reason, humans become polarized. And in psychology, there's a cognitive bias called, there's two cognitive biases. There's one called the loving-liking tendency and one called the hating-disliking tendency. And these biases basically denote the human mind's tendency to attribute efficacy to beliefs or ideas based on what you like, love, hate, or dislike. So for example, right, let's say that Andrew Tate says something that is objectively true if critically analysed. Now, I'm not saying everything he says is true, and I'm not saying that everything he says isn't true, but let's say that, for example, he says something that is objectively true, right? If you take your ego out of it, even if you hate him or love him, let's just say that it is true. If it is genuinely true, if you hate Andrew Tate, or if you dislike him, or if you don't see him as a figure that you like at all, the thing that he's just said that is true, you will disregard and you will basically write it off as false or whatever, because this is how humans work. We tend to be extremely irrational, right? Another example of this, right? Let's go to a wild extreme here and take Adolf Hitler, right? Now I can confidently say that I hate Adolf Hitler, right? But if you're a military strategist, right, and you're looking to learn like ideas for conquering Europe, it might make sense to listen to Hitler. Even though you hate him, some of the ideas he has relevant to military strategy might be, they might have efficacy and they might be valuable to your situation. Now, obviously Hitler lost, so take that with a pinch of salt. But my point is this, it's the same thing with any polarizing figure. If you take Donald Trump, for example, right? Let's say you hate Donald Trump with all of your heart. Once again, Donald Trump, I don't have an opinion. I sit in the middle. There's some things he says that I really disagree with, some things he says that I do agree with. And if you take Donald Trump, if you hate him, right? But let's say, for example, that Donald Trump gives a really good piece of property investing advice, right? You will warp that advice with your hatred for the man who gave it to see the advice as wrong. And that might lead to you making decisions and taking actions that are so counterintuitive with objective reality that you put yourself in a bad situation. So that's what this Andrew Tate thing is all about, right? So I've spent, I don't know, probably 12 to 20 hours listening to long form interviews with Andrew Tate to understand his core message, his core beliefs, and what he truly believes in. This is the problem, right? A lot of people have based their views and opinions on Andrew Tate, and I'm not telling you what your opinion or view should be, but a lot of people have based their opinions and views of the man on short form TikTok content and Instagram content and news articles, right? That's fine. And you can do that if you want to, but if you really want to gauge a human and understand them and their beliefs, then it makes sense to spend more time actually exploring their ideas. And I think that it's a similar thing with Jordan Peterson, for example. So when Jordan Peterson, if you're not familiar with him, the famous clinical psychologist, he basically stood up against this Bill C-16, which was like, it was this idea that you should be legally compelled to give people the efficacy to tell you what pronouns to use, and if you didn't use their pronouns, you'd go to jail. I'm not here to give an opinion on that thing, but I'm here to say that was Jordan Peterson's sort of like step into the limelight. And when that happened, a lot of people hated him for saying that one individual thing. But Jordan Peterson has hundreds of hours of lectures from all across the world with brilliant and wonderful ideas that, if applied to your life, can improve your life. But if you listen to that, you channel all of the effort, what would you even call it? You channel everything with efficacy, or that genuinely was objectively true, through this one piece of like hatred for him. And so it's an important lesson in critical thinking, and it's an important lesson in critical analysis as well. So there's a lot of cognitive biases that are going to encapsulate your thinking and encapsulate your ability to reason and be rational, especially in times like this when someone who you love or hate is sent to jail. Right, what's going to start to happen is you're going to start defending them. Now, let me give you an example, right, with the Andrew Tate situation. So for anyone who's familiar, he basically, what would you call it? He did something that, in my opinion, was very stupid, and that was basically trying to invoke a response, a dramatic response from Greta Thunberg, right? I don't know if you saw it, where he put a picture of his Bugatti and basically was flexing how much emission he gives out to get Greta Thunberg to respond. In my opinion, that's pretty petty, it's stupid. I understand exactly why he did it. I can see through like the hatred or the dislike for the actual action. As you can, if you can do that and you can look past it and you can see the motive, it makes sense. He wants to, invoke drama, get his name out there. But obviously it just seemed pretty stupid to me. It seemed pretty petty. That's my opinion. You might disagree, that's fine. But just because he does something like that or does things like that doesn't mean that other things that he says aren't true, right? So I'll give you an example, right, of something that I agree with Andrew Tate on, right? There's things that I strongly disagree with, right? But there are things that I agree with. For example, he was telling a story about a guy who emailed him saying he wanted to commit suicide. We have no way of validating the story, but if we, take his word for it, which is tricky for people, but he basically had a guy email him, and the guy was like, I'm going to commit suicide. And Andrew emailed him back and said, get a 6-pack, and if you still feel like committing suicide, then let me know, right? And like, the whole idea behind that story is, if you are in a bad situation mentally, there's a strong chance that your physical health is causing that mental health problem. And if you fix the physical thing, the mental thing may be fixed, right? I strongly agree with that. And I think that that's a wonderful idea. But here's the thing, if you're in a negative situation mentally in life and you hate Andrew Tate with a passion, if he says something like that is objectively true, useful and rational, if you remove your ego, what you're going to do is you're going to look at that piece of information through this lens of hate, and you're going to do the opposite. And this is so important when it comes to your thinking and your ability to reason. It's being able to see what is objectively true, regardless of your personal emotional bias towards the person in question who is speaking the thing. And I think that like this thing with Andrew Tate, this arrest, right? It gives us an opportunity as thinkers, as philosophers, whatever you want to consider yourself, but it gives you an opportunity to actually exercise the muscle of critical thinking. And it's not often that you have that. Obviously, like it's entirely possible to exercise the muscle of critical thinking and reasoning and rationality throughout your life at every given turn, right? When it comes to different things. But on this scale, when there's so much noise, and there's so many like different opinions flying around and people are so polarized, if you can teach yourself to like remove any polarization or bias you have and critically analyze the situation and arrive at a conclusion through logic, thought and rationality as opposed to emotion, then what you're going to find is you're able to win, essentially. So I'm not saying like you should hate him or love him. It's the problem with humans these days, the real big cultural, socio-economic issue, and I don't really have too much of an idea. I'm not that qualified to talk on this, but the biggest problem that I see personally is this black and white binary thinking, whereby, like, for example, let's say you hate Mark Zuckerberg, right? And you hate Meta, and you hate Facebook and everything like that. But then one day Mark Zuckerberg may give a piece of advice, or he might have an idea or an opinion that is actually objectively quite good. If you look at the piece of information he's given, but you hate him, you're probably going to ignore it or do the opposite thing, right? It goes deeper than just looking at advice and opinions and what to believe. But you have to ask yourself, like, let's say you do hate Andrew Tate, or let's say you do love him, you have to ask yourself why. You have to get to the root of the belief and ask yourself, like, why do I have this opinion of this person? How have I formulated it? Am I basing my judgment of him based on one thing that I saw one time, or one thing that someone told me sometime? Or have I actually spent time and energy observing, critically analysing his core arguments and his core message? If you get rid of all the publicity stunts that he pulls, like the Greta Thunberg thing, sometimes just doing things that, in my opinion, aren't intelligent, but they are intelligent from the perspective of getting people to look at you. If you look past all of that stuff, all of the shiny cigars and insulting people and all that stuff, and you actually observe like his critical arguments and what he believes to be true, or what he claims to believe to be true, those things, they can actually be quite helpful, and they can add value to your life, and they can improve everything. That's up for discussion. You might think that some of his beliefs and opinions are awful, some of them are right. But my point here is, you need, like, as a human, if you want to be successful in any realm or any endeavor of like the human world, being able to critically reason, separate yourself from your emotions and your biases, see through all of the shit and just have a transparent look on a person or their opinions, and you can critically analyze them. And the ability to do that is so rare and so finite in society that if you can learn how to do it, you give yourself an advantage that is unparalleled, pretty much. I don't know anyone else that thinks like this. And ironically, I've learned to think in non-binary terms and remove my ego from things like this. Like, for example, there's people close to me that I love that really despise Andrew Tate. There's people that close to me that I love that really love Andrew Tate, right? Friends, family, all this stuff. And the thing to do is, you can hold an opinion on whether or not you like him, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not going to tell you what mine is, because I don't want to bias your thinking anyway. But you can hold an opinion on whether you hate him or love him. But just because you hate someone doesn't mean that everything they say, every single word and piece of information that they utter from their mouth, is necessarily wrong or bad. Likewise, on the contrary, just because you love someone doesn't mean everything they say or utter is true or objectively rational, right? It works on both ends of the scale, okay? So what we can conclude is that we have an opportunity as thinkers, as people with reason, right? We have an opportunity here to exercise that reason, and use critical thought to analyze the situation. And I'm telling you, all you've got to do, if you've made it this far into the video, congratulations, because most people have very weak attention spans. But if you want an idea as to how bad this is or what I'm talking about, just go and look at the comments now, right? You're going to find people saying Andrew Tate's the best and everything that he stands for is wonderful and amazing. And then you're going to find people who say Andrew Tate is the worst human on the planet. He's scum. He should go to jail. The person who can look past these opinions and derive value from critical ideas that have been weighed in terms of your own values and your own belief systems, that's the person that will win. Because if you can do it in this situation, you can do it with politics, you can do it with business, you can do it with psychology, you can do it with sales, you can do it. Any other realm of human endeavor requires the ability to think in gray terms as opposed to black and white. There's a time to take a stance, and that's fine, you can have a stance, but just because you believe one thing to be true doesn't mean that the opposite opinion of that belief is necessarily entirely wrong, okay? It's like another example, and then we'll close off the video. If you look at flat earth theory, for example, for example, I believe this is an example, right? I believe the earth is round, right? I don't believe in the flat earth theory. But what I've done is I used to think flat earth, no, that's so dumb, that's so stupid, right? But then I looked at that and I thought, okay, well, let's just do this critical thinking idea, and let's actually just look, right? And let's look at the evidence, evidence that these flat earthers, they even call themselves flat earthers. Like, when your ego and your identity is so attached to an idea, it's impossible for you to observe the other idea and basically understand it. But I thought, okay, I'll look at them and I'll see what evidence they have. I looked at the evidence, and then I looked at the evidence for the round earthers, or whatever you want to call them, and I sort of sat in the middle for a short period of time, and I weighed up the evidence and the ideas, and then I concluded through my own critical analysis, without any bias, that the round earth idea is significantly more weighted in rationality and reason. You might believe in the flat earth theory, and that's fine. I have nothing against you. This is the other thing as well, is just because, so if I like Andrew Tate, I'm not saying I do, but if I like Andrew Tate and you hate Andrew Tate, that doesn't mean that I am your enemy. So egotistically, right, human beings have a very strong tendency to dislike those who disagree with them. And the reason behind that, and I won't go into it too much, but my theory is that to be wrong is to lose, right? And if you're wrong about something, you lose status, which means you lose serotonin, which means you slip down the social hierarchy, which means that you feel worse and you feel bad about yourself. So people will go to lengths and they'll go to the ends of the earth to defend their ideas. And that includes rejecting people who disagree with them. And anyone with a I'm not gonna say anyone with a brain, because everyone does this and most people have brains, but anyone who understands like how billionaires think or how really successful people think will understand that like sitting in the middle or temporarily letting go of polarization to conclude like an argument is a way more rational way to do it, because the only thing that I care about is discovering the truth and operating my life in accordance with the truth. That is my whole philosophy. That's all I want to do, is understand what is objectively true, what can I truly believe that is true and has genuine efficacy and genuine objective reality attached to it, and then how can I integrate lessons from that, or how can I integrate that or operate my life in a way that is in accordance with the truth or what is objectively true. That's the only thing I care about. And the reason that I've been able to accomplish by societal standards a strong level of success, like multi-seven-figure businesses by the age of 24, after dropping out of university, all that stuff. I think one of the primary reasons I've been able to do that is because I'm willing to detach my ego and sacrifice my ego and sometimes even my status to search for the truth, so I can embed that truth into my life and hold it near and dear to my heart, so I can operate in accordance with what I truly know is the truth, right? So it's all about the truth. It's all about thinking for yourself and understanding things. If you hate Andrew Tate, I'd ask you why, and then I'd ask you why again, and why again, and why again, and why again. If you love Andrew Tate, I'd ask you why, and why again, why again, why again. If you can't answer like why 5 times with a logical, coherent rebuttal, then your opinion or belief may be based in bias and you may be jammed, right? Psychologically jammed to a polarized end of this sort of spectrum. So I'm going to ask you now, why do you love Andrew Tate, or why do you hate him? And then you obviously we can't have an interaction, this is a video, but you might give a sort of top level answer, because he's a misogynist, or because, you know, he's a hero, right? Then I'm going to ask you again, well, why? Why is he a misogynist? Why is he a hero? And then you might be like, oh, because he said this. And then the hero thing, oh, because he said this, or because he did this. And then I'll say, okay, well, why does that make him a misogynist? Or why did he do that? Or why? If you just keep on going down, why, like the best way to understand whether or not a belief is concurrent with objective reality is to question it until you get to the point that you can question it no further, and ask yourself if that first principle or if that core central idea that is encapsulating this entire belief, if that is an objective alignment with the truth and reality, then your belief is sound, right? And it has factual correctness to it. That makes sense. But if you ask yourself why enough, and you get to the bottom and you realize like, okay, well, I hate Andrew Tate. Why? Because he's a misogynist. Why is he a misogynist? Because Piers Morgan said he's a misogynist. Why did Piers Morgan say he's a misogynist? Because he obviously wants people to click on his video. And then you start to observe that. You've only got to ask why a couple of times. Likewise with the love thing. I love Andrew Tate. Why? Because he's a hero. Why is he a hero? Because he tells men to what does he tell men to do? And then you realize you don't actually understand his ideas or opinions, right? So I'm just saying, like, you can have your opinions. You're fully entitled to them. Everybody is, right? You can believe what you want to believe. We operate in a free world with a free mind. But I'm just saying that you should have some sort of conscious, logical gatekeeper for core ideas or beliefs that you hold near and dear to your heart that basically shape your entire paradigm and how you view the world. Your worldview is sacred. It's the most important thing that you have to your ability to navigate through reality and conjure up events or actions that allow you to, get what you want, essentially. Your worldview is so important, and if you don't protect it and analyze everything that constitutes it, you might make decisions and start making actions and taking decisions and making actions that are out of alignment with objective reality, which is not good for anyone. That's up for debate. But anyways, that's basically my take on this whole thing. Like I said, I'm not here to give an opinion. I'm not here to tell you that you should love or hate him. I'm not here to defend him. I'm not here to attack him. I'm not here to defend or attack anyone or any ideas. I'm just here to tell you that if we look at this objectively, critical reasoning and rationality is a good tool to use, and we actually have an opportunity here, a very good opportunity to exercise that muscle. And if you exercise it enough, you'll become very good at thinking, your worldview will become very transparent, and then that will allow you to be more successful. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you can subscribe, you can like it if you want to like it, and I'd be interested to read the comments because I'm sure they'll be pretty spicy. Have a good day. Take care.